And welcome to The Hague, the seat of the Dutch Parliament, where we begin this edition of Europe Now. The Netherlands is gearing up for general elections on March 15th. Now, normally the Dutch elections don't attract too much international attention, but this year they're seen as somewhat of a litmus test for the rest of the EU. Across the bloc, anti-EU, anti-establishment parties have been gaining in strength, and after a Brexit, many fear that an exit or even a Frexit could be on the cards. The leader of the far-right PVV, Party for Freedom, Geert Wilders, has been leading polls here. He says that if he ever becomes Prime Minister, he would put the Dutch membership of the EU to a vote. What's more, he wants to ban the Koran and close the country's borders. Well, our reporter Luke Brown went to meet with both his supporters and indeed members of the Dutch public who aren't too happy with his rise in popularity.
Leon had a troubled past. Now, though, he's training to be a primary school teacher. Politically, he backs the Netherlands Populist Party, the PVV, due to its strong anti-Islam and anti-immigration message.
The biggest goal, everybody knows that about the PVV, it's their main issue, is that they don't want the Netherlands to be Islamized, taken over by Muslims. Look, there are Egyptians coming here, there are Moroccans coming here, Turks are coming here, but if we have to take into account all these cultures, what happens to our own culture?
Here in Dordrecht, those kinds of views are common. It's a small town in decline, confronted by a changing population. Nearly 20% of residents are of immigrant heritage. The PVV has won the last 2 provincial elections here, its populist message striking a chord. The party is the creation of Geert Wilders. He founded it a decade ago, having quit the mainstream VVD party. His narrow focus has changed little.
Islam is dressed up as a religion, while it is an ideology. I am sure that if there were Nazi temples in the Netherlands, there would be an uproar if this was allowed. Believe me, Islamic ideology is possibly more dangerous.
Wilders' themes like anti-immigration have helped push Dutch politics rightwards. The Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, launching his campaign with a message for immigrants to behave normally or go away. But even though he's polling strongly, Geert Wilders is unlikely to be the next Prime Minister. Other major parties have ruled out forming a coalition with him.
Geert Wilders' positions are outrageous in terms of they're beyond the pale in terms of mainstream politics. Geert Wilders is basically isolated also because of his own proposals. Almost all other parties, they have to build rainbow coalitions in order to keep Wilders out.
The left-wing GroenLinks party is on the other side of the ideological divide. Its leader, Jesse Klaver, insists that his country should not be defined by Geert Wilders.
The Netherlands is a very tolerant country. We are a beautiful country. Don't let yourself be distracted by messages about Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders is not the Netherlands. The Netherlands is what you saw here tonight. We make this country together.
GroenLinks and other left-wing parties are trailing, though, the populist PVV movement, a sign of the disconnect between the urban elite and many voters. Back in Dordrecht, we meet Gerrit. He trains police dogs for a hobby. He too will vote for PVV, not because he wants them to win, but as a protest vote against the establishment.
I think it would be very good that the aristocrats that rule in The Hague realize that something needs to change. I think if things continue as they are, nothing will change. Only when people make it clear that things have to be different, then change will be possible.
Geert Wilders is an integral part of Europe's resurgent populist right, his success proving a model for other far-right parties. His performance in the Dutch elections will be a test for the continent's efforts to contain their rise.
Well, we're now at the Peace Palace in The Hague, a building that dates back over 100 years. It was built to embody the ideal of world peace, still very much a working institution today.
Countries and parties come to the Peace Palace to put their case for the judges or arbiters, and actually war is being prevented here because issues that could lead to conflicts are resolved here in a peaceful manner. The Peace Palace is the result of the first 2 World Peace Conferences which were initiated by the last Tsar of Russia, who was either an idealist, he wanted world peace, or he was a realist. The economy suffered from the consequences of warfare, but he decided to call together the first World Peace Conference. He needed a small neutral country, and they were here for weeks negotiating, and they decided that peace through law should prevail.
With me now I have Ms. Cora van Nieuwenhuizen. Thanks for your time. Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You're an MEP for the centre-right VVD party, which is the party of the current Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, here in the Netherlands. Ms. Nieuwenhuizen, we're in the Peace Palace, but today the atmosphere around us is more of fear, talk of terrorism. Is that one of the issues coming up to these general elections in the Netherlands?
Yes, it sure is. People are very much concerned about what's happening in the world, whether it's, look at Syria, but also look at more things on an economic level, economic wars maybe between the United States, Europe and the rest of the world. So much going on, Brexit.
Are these fears playing into, the main challenger to Rutte and the VVD party is Geert Wilders and his Party for Freedom. He's anti-Islam, anti-immigration. How do you explain the rise in his popularity here in the Netherlands?
Well, he takes a very, sort of a Santa Claus, promising people only good things. But we tried it governing with him once before. And when the things got tough, they ran away. So you cannot really build your trust on them, because if things get difficult, they will disappoint you.
Indeed, back in 2010, there was a shaky coalition with the VVD and the PVV, the party of Geert Wilders. But since then, some suggest that the VVD has moved more to the right. We're seeing even recently, Mark Rutte coming out saying, well, if immigrants aren't happy here, they should leave. Has he changed his politics?
No, we haven't. But in that time, the PVV also had won a lot in elections. So we thought, okay, we're Democrats, so we give them a chance. But, well, it didn't work out that well. And since then, the PVV has moved much more to the far right. And in the Netherlands, we are a very tolerant country. But the only thing we do not tolerate is intolerance.
Indeed, our image of the Netherlands is so liberal, so tolerant. But recently, the lower house of parliament here did pass the idea of banning that full veil. Is the Netherlands changing? Is it becoming less liberal?
No, I don't think so. But the full veil is actually unliberal because you cannot see who you're dealing with. We are an open society. You have to have the possibility to make eye contact, see who a person is. And of course, it's just something that you need to have an open society.
So still liberal and open. And in terms of the EU, Ms. van Nieuwenhuizen, how do you feel the Dutch feel today?
Well, a large majority of the Dutch definitely do not want an exit. We are an open economy. We depend on our exporting, on trade, so it would be totally crazy to go for an exit, being a small country with only 17 million inhabitants. Refugees that really have to fear for their life are always welcome in the Netherlands. But of course, if it's a different story when it's about economic migrants, because, well, the majority of the people in the world are worse off than we are, but we cannot all accept them in our country. But that doesn't mean that we are not welcoming true refugees wholeheartedly.
Well, we're going to go now over to Rotterdam, which is the second largest city here in the Netherlands, one of the EU's busiest ports. It's also a melting pot of various nationalities, including its own mayor. Ahmed Abu Taleb has Moroccan origins and has been running the city since 2009. However, he's not your average liberal, and his message on migrants is integrate or leave. Luke Brown went to meet him.
Alicia is a student in Rotterdam. She's taking a group of Syrian newcomers on a tour of the city's must-see sites, including this revamped indoor market.
There aren't that many places in Rotterdam that are iconic for the city. And the Markthal is very new, and it attracts so many tourists that we just had to bring them here.
The Markthal was opened in 2014 at a cost of €175 million. It's the jewel in the crown for a regenerated area in central Rotterdam, a showpiece of the city's ambition to breathe new life into a once run-down area.
Everything is coming together. The mayor and the policies, as well as the vision that you build buildings like this. Everything at the same time, and that's great.
Credited with that change, Ahmed Abu Taleb, mayor since 2009. As an immigrant who arrived from Morocco in the 1970s, he's a symbol of successful integration in the Netherlands. He's not been afraid to speak his mind, denouncing the gunmen who attacked the French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo.
Omdat je humoristen niet ziet zitten die een krantje maken, ja, mag ik het zo zeggen, rot toch op?
As a Muslim in charge of the Netherlands' second city, Abu Taleb's views carry considerable weight. But for the local party defending Muslim rights, he's too uncompromising.
But to make the link with the political message of F off if you don't like it here, we are critical of that. A mayor should by definition bring people together and should rise above it.
Abu Taleb's strategy is centred on what he calls the we society, offering opportunity for all as long as all abide by the rules.
All people are included in the circle of the weak society, unless you decide not to be with us in the weak society. So it's up to you to make a choice whether you would like to be with us, to work with us together, to make the best of it, or to go to Yemen to learn to use a Kalashnikov and to come back and to kill people. Then you are excluded. But I didn't exclude you, you excluded yourself.
The we society is visible in the gritty southern suburb of Feyenoord, one of Rotterdam's poorest. It's the focus of a 20-year national plan to fight unemployment, boost education and improve the living environment. Younes and Noordin used to have nothing to do but loiter on this square. Now they help teach youngsters to play football on the newly laid artificial pitch, serving as role models.
Children look up to us because we grew up here and know what is happening. We can function as a mentor for them.
Ali has been working with the young people here since 2012. He's at the front line of Rotterdam's We Society, sent by the city authorities to get local kids back on track.
You create a connection and lower the barriers, so you can really understand them better, and so help them out on an individual level, because you are in their space.
Rotterdam is home to over 170 nationalities. Abu Taleb compares it to the United Nations. After 8 years in power, one challenge will be to ensure his We Society is a successful model for other multicultural cities.
Well, we're going to head now to Venlo, a city on the eastern edge of the country, to meet with Sophie in Velt. She's an MEP for the D66, the Liberal Democrat Party here in the Netherlands. She's currently meeting with a number of young people there to find out what their hopes and fears for the future of their country are.
I've been driving all night, my hands wet on the wheel. There's a voice in my head that drives my heel.
Our expectation of Europe is that, well, what I think is that it's important to realize that the only way forward is to go for a federal Europe. We have to unite against the other big powers in the world.
Our education is still really Dutch. That if you can make it more European, you can be more European if you have a history class, but that's not also Dutch-centric.
Zowel Trump als Poetin toonden diepe minachting voor internationale organisaties als de Verenigde Naties, NAVO en de Raad van Europa. De 19e-eeuwse natiestaat is niet meer het antwoord op deze uitdagingen. Om onze veiligheid en ons welzijn te garanderen hebben we een krachtige EU nodig. Een EU die radicaal hervormd is, democratisch en in staat tot handelen.
You stated that it's important to be more European and less from nation states.
It's not a choice. No, I'm 100% European, but I'm also 100% Dutch. I think national politicians should stop telling people that they have to choose and that, being European is incompatible with your national identity.
Miss Sophie in Velt, thanks for your time. Now, we heard in your speech you said a flawed EU is better than no EU at all. It seems like a lot of the party members, the young party members gathered here, seem to think the same. But overall in the Netherlands, do you think the Dutch are still more pro-EU or starting to to like it less and less?
Well, I mean, it's obvious that, like in many other EU member states, that Euroscepticism or a downright anti-EU attitude is on the rise, but there's still a firm majority in favor of membership of the European Union. But it's clear, and this I actually agree with them, that we need to fundamentally change the European Union. It started as a project of diplomats, and now it really has to become a political union, a parliamentary democracy, and where citizens themselves in the ballot station determine who their leadership will be in Europe and what the policies will be. Whereas now it's actually, it's the national governments who determine this behind closed doors. And I fully agree with the Eurosceptics that that is not the way it should be done.
So how worried should we be that this, we're looking at Geert Wilders here in the Netherlands, there's similar parties in France and Germany. How worried are you that they actually will take a decisive slice of the pie?
I mean, we have reasons to be very worried. I mean, because we can see that in many cases, and the worst example being the United States, people who holding these views are coming to power at the same time. I mean, we should not be intimidated. Come on, we still have a majority, and don't we believe in the power of our own ideas anymore? I mean, we should be out there with the same passion, because let's face it, we only have a good future in this world today if we have a strong European Union.
Well, that brings us to the end of the first half of the show, but join us again after the news, when among other things we'll be visiting the European Space Agency to find out exactly what planet the EU is on.